I'm Amber Winters, 30 years old, and I never thought my own family would try to destroy me. When my brother Ryan demanded I cancel my critical doctor's appointment to drive him to his basketball game, I had no idea refusing would shatter my world. My unexplained weight loss and exhaustion weren't important to them. Not when Ryan's scholarship chances were at stake. His rage when I said no was just the beginning. When he called our mother and she sided with him completely, I realized this wasn't just about a ride. This was the first move in a war I never saw coming. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you've ever had to stand your ground against family. And subscribe to join our community of survivors. Trust me, what happened next will show you exactly why blood isn't always thicker than water. For 3 months, my body had been sending increasingly alarming signals that something was seriously wrong. It started with fatigue that coffee couldn't touch. Then came the night sweats, soaking my sheets until I had to change them twice nightly. The unexplained weight loss was what finally scared me enough to see a doctor, 15 pounds gone in 6 weeks, despite no changes to my diet or exercise. After initial tests showed concerning results, my doctor scheduled a follow-up appointment that could finally provide answers. This wasn't something I could postpone again. Our family dynamic had always been complicated, but it worsened after my father died when I was 18 and Ryan was just 10. As the oldest, I sacrificed my college dreams to help my mother Diana raise him. While my friends went off to universities, I took photography classes at community college and worked 2 jobs to keep our family afloat. Photography had been my passion since Dad gave me my first camera at 14. I slowly built it into a modest business over the years, but it was always a struggle to make ends meet. "Your brother needs you" became my mother's constant refrain. Whether it was driving Ryan to practices, helping with homework, or working extra shifts to pay for his expensive basketball camps, my needs always came second. I didn't mind at first. Ryan was just a kid who'd lost his father. But as the years passed, that temporary sacrifice hardened into a permanent expectation. When I finally moved into my own apartment at 27, my mother acted like I'd abandoned them, despite the fact I still paid Ryan's phone bill and helped with their rent whenever they fell short. My tiny 1-bedroom apartment wasn't much, but it represented the first step toward independence after years of putting myself last. "I just don't understand why you need your own place when we have a perfectly good room for you here," my mother had said when I moved out. "It's so selfish, spending money on rent when Ryan needs new basketball shoes." That afternoon, as I prepared for my doctor's appointment, my phone buzzed with Ryan's name on the screen. "Amber," coach says, "scouts from State University are coming to tonight's game. You have to drive me," he demanded, without even a hello. "Ryan, I can't. I have my follow-up appointment, remember? I've already rescheduled it twice." "So reschedule again. This is my future we're talking about." The entitlement in his voice was unmistakable. "I'm sorry, but this is important too. Can't Mom drive you? Her car's in the shop again." "Come on, it's just some stupid doctor's appointment." "You're fine." "Actually, I'm not fine. That's why I need to go." "Whatever. You always make everything about you." He hung up. I called Jessica, my best friend since high school and the only person who truly understood my family situation. "He's unbelievable," she said after I explained. "Stand your ground, Amber. Your health matters too." "I know, but I feel guilty. What if this really is his big break? There will be other games, other scouts, and he could ask one of his teammates for a ride. He has options. You need answers about your health." I was still on the phone with Jessica when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Ryan standing there, but he wasn't alone. My mother's severe expression made my stomach drop. I opened the door, already knowing this wouldn't be a rational conversation. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" My mother pushed past me into my apartment without waiting for a response. Her perfume, the same floral scent she'd worn since I was a child, momentarily overwhelming me. Ryan followed, shooting me a triumphant look when our mother wasn't watching. In my small living room, my mother perched on the edge of my couch like she was afraid to touch anything. Ryan remained standing, arms crossed, basketball jersey already on for the game that was still hours away. "Amber, We need to discuss your priorities. My mother's voice had that dangerous calm I recognized from childhood, the tone that preceded punishment. Your brother has been working toward this scholarship opportunity for years. Years. And now you want to jeopardize everything because of some doctor's appointment that could easily be rescheduled? Mom, the doctor thinks it could be serious. I've been sick for months. Oh, please, she waved her hand dismissively. You've always been dramatic about your health. Remember when you insisted you had mono in high school? I did have mono. The doctor confirmed it, after you made us take you to 3 different doctors until one agreed with you. This was her specialty, rewriting history to fit her narrative. I had only seen one doctor for mono, but in my mother's version, I was always the hypochondriac, the attention seeker. Ryan chose this moment to step forward, his expression transforming from smug to wounded so quickly it would have been impressive if it weren't so calculated. I thought you'd be happy for me, Amber. His voice cracked perfectly. This could be my one shot. Coach says these scouts rarely come to schools like ours. He paused, looking down as if gathering himself. Dad would have been there. The low blow landed exactly as intended. Our father had been Ryan's biggest fan, never missing a single game until his heart attack took him from us. Using Dad against me was Ryan's nuclear option, one that usually worked. That's not fair, I said, hating how my voice shook. Of course I want to support you, but this isn't about basketball versus a routine checkup. The doctor found something concerning in my blood work. I need to know what's wrong. My mother's eyes narrowed. Family comes first, Amber. It always has. Your father and I raised you better than this. This is about my health, Mom. That matters too. Is it? Or is this because you're jealous of the attention Ryan's getting? You've always resented his talents. The accusation was so absurd I actually laughed, which only angered her further. I've sacrificed everything for this family. I gave up college to help raise Ryan after Dad died. No one asked you to martyr yourself, my mother snapped. And now you think that gives you the right to abandon your brother when he needs you most? That's not how family works. Ryan paced dramatically, wiping at non-existent tears. I can't believe my own sister won't be there. What am I supposed to tell Coach? Tell the scouts? Tell them your sister had a medical emergency, I suggested. Stop being so melodramatic, my mother cut in. It's a doctor's appointment, not surgery. You don't know that. That's why I need to go to find out. My mother stood suddenly, her patience visibly exhausted. I've heard enough. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to call your doctor right now and reschedule. Then you're going to drive your brother to his game and support him like family should. When I didn't immediately reach for my phone, her expression hardened. If you can't put family first, Amber, then perhaps you shouldn't consider yourself part of this family anymore. The room went silent. Even Ryan looked momentarily shocked at how far she'd pushed. You don't mean that, I whispered. Try me. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. I wasn't going to do this yet, but you forced my hand. She tossed it onto my coffee table. I unfolded it with trembling fingers to find bank statements from an account I didn't recognize. That's the inheritance account your father left for both of you. As trustee, I've removed your access until you demonstrate more family loyalty. You can't do that. Dad wanted that split between us. The trust gives me discretion, and I'm exercising it. You've clearly forgotten what matters. Ryan's smirk returned when our mother turned away, confirming what I already knew. This had been their plan all along. The basketball game was just the excuse. After they left, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the frame, I collapsed onto my couch, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. The waiting room at Dr. Henderson's office felt colder than I remembered. Every cough from fellow patients made me jump, my nerves frayed after the confrontation with my family. The nurse called my name with a sympathetic smile, perhaps noticing how I kept checking my phone, which had been buzzing non-stop with messages from Ryan and my mother. Dr. Henderson, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no-nonsense manner, reviewed my chart with a frown that deepened as she flipped through the pages. Amber, I'm concerned about your test results, she said, looking up at me over her reading glasses. Your blood work is showing abnormalities consistent with lymphoma. The word hung in the air between us. Cancer. She hadn't said it explicitly, but I knew enough to understand what lymphoma meant. We need to schedule a biopsy immediately to confirm the diagnosis and determine what type we're dealing with, she continued. I've already put in the order for next week. Time is of the essence here. I nodded mechanically, trying to absorb the information while my phone vibrated again in my purse. Dr. Henderson talked about specialists and treatment options, but her words swam around me, just out of reach. Do you have someone who can come with you to the biopsy? She asked. You shouldn't drive yourself home afterward. The question brought tears to my eyes. Who did I have? The two people who should have been my support system were currently waging war against me. I'll figure something out, I managed. In the parking lot, I called Jessica, the words tumbling out between sobs. They think it's cancer, Jess. Oh my God, Amber. I'm leaving work right now. Where are you? Still at the doctor's office. I can't drive right now. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. The drive to my apartment was silent, Jessica squeezing my hand at red lights. As we approached my building, I noticed something off. My door was slightly ajar. Did you leave your door open? Jessica asked, concern sharpening her voice. No. Never. We approached cautiously. Inside, destruction greeted us. My living room had been ransacked, cushions slashed, books thrown from shelves, and worst of all, my photography equipment lay in pieces. My cameras, the tools of my livelihood, had been smashed beyond repair. Thousands of dollars of equipment, years of saving, destroyed in minutes. We need to call the police, Jessica said, already dialing. Officer Scott Lambert arrived 30 minutes later, surveying the damage with practiced detachment. Any idea who might have done this? He asked. Notepad ready. My brother and mother threatened me today, I said. They were angry that I wouldn't cancel my doctor's appointment to drive my brother to his basketball game. The skepticism in his eyes was immediate. And you think your family trashed your apartment because of a ride to a game? Put that way, it did sound absurd. There's more to it than that. They've been manipulating me for years. My mother just cut me off from my inheritance. He wrote something down, but his posture had changed. I was no longer a victim in his eyes, but a family drama he wanted no part of. We'll file a report, but without evidence or witnesses. He shrugged. After he left, Jessica helped me clean up while I checked my email on my phone. 3 photography clients had canceled their upcoming sessions with vague excuses about scheduling conflicts. Confused, I opened Instagram to find my feed flooded with notifications. Ryan had posted doctored screenshots of text conversations that never happened, making it look like I had said horrible things about not caring about his future and being glad our father wasn't alive to see what a disappointment he'd turned out to be. The comments were vicious. What kind of sister would say such things? She should be ashamed. Family comes first. Ryan was a local basketball star, beloved in our small community. I was the invisible sister, the unknown photographer. In the court of public opinion, I never stood a chance. He's turned the whole town against me, I whispered, showing Jessica my phone. This is insane, she said, scrolling through the comments. He's actually insane. I deleted the apps from my phone, unable to bear the barrage. As Jessica left to get us food, I noticed a dark sedan parked across the street, its engine running. When I moved toward the window for a better look, it pulled away slowly. Someone was watching me. The day of my biopsy arrived with a grim, overcast sky that matched my mood perfectly. Jessica drove me to the hospital, squeezing my hand as we entered the sterile building that might soon become a second home if the diagnosis was confirmed. At the registration desk, the receptionist's friendly smile faltered as she typed my information into the system. Miss Winters, I'm showing an issue with your insurance coverage. It appears your policy was canceled 3 days ago. That's impossible, I said. I just checked it last week. She turned her monitor so I could see the screen. According to our records, the primary policyholder requested termination of your coverage. My blood ran cold. The family insurance plan had been in my mother's name since my father died. Despite having a job that offered benefits, I'd stayed on the family plan to save money. Is there any way to reinstate it today? I need this procedure. I'm afraid not. Insurance reinstatement typically takes 3 to 5 business days to process, even with expedited requests. The financial counselor I was hastily referred to outlined my options with clinical detachment. Without insurance, the biopsy would cost over $8,000. Money I simply didn't have, especially after the destruction of my photography equipment. There are payment plans available, she offered, sliding a pamphlet across her desk. The monthly payments listed made me dizzy. As I sat in the waiting area, trying to decide whether to proceed and plunge myself into medical debt or postpone a potentially life-saving procedure, a nurse named Melissa sat down beside me. I couldn't help overhearing, she said quietly. We have a patient advocate who might be able to help. Let me call her for you. While waiting for the advocate, I glanced up at the waiting room television. A local sports segment was featuring none other than Ryan, who had indeed played exceptionally well at the game I'd missed. The camera zoomed in as he dedicated his performance to my family who has always supported me through everything. The irony made me laugh bitterly, drawing concerned looks from other patients. Amber? I turned to see my mother striding toward me, her expression a perfect mask of maternal concern. For one disorienting moment, I thought she'd come to support me after all. What are you doing here? I asked, rising to meet her. Instead of answering, she raised her voice to be heard by everyone in the waiting area. Sweetheart, you need to come home now. Dr. Rayburn said you've been missing your psychiatric appointments again. The waiting room went silent as heads turned toward our confrontation. What are you talking about? I don't have a psychiatrist. She took my arm, her fingers digging in painfully. You're having another episode, dear. Remember what happened last time you convinced yourself you were seriously ill? The strategic brilliance of her attack left me momentarily speechless. In one move, she'd undermined my credibility with the hospital staff and created a public scene that would support her narrative that I was mentally unstable. Let go of me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to leave. I'm trying to help you. Her voice broke perfectly, tears welling in her eyes. We're all so worried about you. Ryan is devastated by your accusations. Hospital security approached, drawn by the disturbance. Is everything all right here? Before I could speak, my mother launched into her performance. My daughter has a history of mental health issues. She's been fabricating medical symptoms for attention since her father died. We've been trying to get her back into treatment. That's not true, I said, but I could see doubt in the security guard's eyes. I have lymphoma. My doctor is Dr. Henderson. You can verify everything I'm saying. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She truly believes these delusions. It's heartbreaking. Melissa, the nurse who'd been helping me, appeared beside us. Ma'am, I need to ask you to step outside. You're disturbing other patients. I'm her mother. And this is a hospital, Melissa replied firmly. Dr. Henderson is on her way down. And security will stay with your daughter until then. Please wait outside or I'll have to call the police. My mother's mask slipped momentarily, raw fury flashing in her eyes before she composed herself. I'll be right outside when you're ready to come home, Amber. We just want what's best for you. After she left, Melissa stayed beside me. Your mother's been telling stories about you to the hospital staff, she said quietly. She called the nurses' station this morning claiming you have Munchausen syndrome and begging us not to enable you. The betrayal cut deep. None of it's true. I know. Dr. Henderson already warned us about potential interference from your family. That's why I approached you. Dr. Henderson arrived minutes later, her usual composure replaced by controlled anger after security briefed her. Your mother has been calling my office as well, she told me. I've flagged your file to prevent any unauthorized access to your medical information going forward. Despite the day's chaos, the biopsy proceeded. As I lay on the table, needle extracting cells that would confirm my fate, the hospital television in the corner played footage of Ryan's game again. The local sportscaster praised the young basketball star who overcame family difficulties to deliver a stellar performance. Tears slid down my temples into my hair as the reality of my situation crystallized. My own family was systematically dismantling my life while I fought a battle for my very survival. The eviction notice was taped to my door when I returned from my follow-up appointment with Dr. Henderson. The biopsy had confirmed the diagnosis. Stage 2, Hodgkin's lymphoma. I would need to begin chemotherapy immediately. 6 months of treatment if all went well. A year or more if it didn't. And now, apparently, I would be homeless within 30 days. I called my landlord, hoping there had been some mistake. There hadn't. "Your rent check bounced, Miss Winters," he explained coldly. "And frankly, after what Ryan told my son about your behavior, I'm not comfortable having you as a tenant anymore." Ryan's friend Tyler was the landlord's son, another connection I hadn't considered. Inside, I went straight to my laptop to check my bank accounts. My checking account showed a negative balance of $247.83 due to overdraft fees. My savings account, which had contained nearly $5,000, my emergency fund, showed a zero balance. The last transaction was a transfer to an account I didn't recognize, made the previous day. Panicked, I called the bank. "Yes, Miss Winters, that withdrawal was authorized using your online banking credentials," the representative explained. "It appears you transferred the funds to an account under the name of Diana Winters, my mother. Somehow, she had accessed my accounts." I tried to explain that I hadn't authorized the transfer, but without proof of hacking, the bank considered it a legitimate transaction. The best they could offer was to investigate, which could take up to 90 days. My credit cards were next. All 3 were maxed out with charges I never made. Expensive restaurants, clothing stores, even a weekend booking at a luxury hotel 3 states away. "Your mother's name is on your oldest account as a cosigner," the credit card company explained. "She has legal access to use it." A co-signed student credit card from when I was 18, which I'd kept open because closing old accounts could hurt your credit score. I'd forgotten she was still linked to it. I called Jessica in tears. "I can't stay here," I told her. "They're going to get me evicted. They've taken all my money." "Pack a bag," she said without hesitation. "You're staying with me until we figure this out." Jessica's apartment was smaller than mine, but her spare futon became my refuge. She helped me move my remaining photography equipment and essential belongings before the locks could be changed. "You need legal help," she said as we sorted through my financial paperwork that evening. "This is criminal what they're doing. I can't afford a lawyer. They've taken everything." My friend Michael is an attorney. He specializes in elder law, but he might have some ideas. I'll call him tomorrow. Michael Parker arrived the next evening after his workday ended, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened intently as I outlined everything that had happened, taking careful notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. "What your family is doing crosses several legal boundaries," he said when I finished. "Financial abuse, potential identity theft, possible fraud regarding the inheritance." He tapped his pen against his notepad. "Speaking of the inheritance, do you have a copy of your father's will?" I shook my head. My mother handled everything after he died. I was 18 and overwhelmed with grief and suddenly having to help raise Ryan. She told me Dad had set up a trust for both of us, with her as the trustee, until we turned 30. "Did you ever see any documentation?" "Just the occasional statement she would show me. The money was supposed to be split equally between Ryan and me." Michael's expression grew thoughtful. "I'd like to look into the trust documents. There may be provisions your mother has violated. Would you be comfortable with me representing you?" "Pro bono, of course." The unexpected offer of help brought tears to my eyes. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" "Because Jessica cares about you," he said simply, "and because what your family is doing is wrong. Sometimes the law needs to step in when family fails." Over the next week, as I began my first round of chemotherapy, Michael dove into investigating my financial situation. What he discovered was worse than I'd imagined. "Your father's original will didn't create a trust at all," he explained, showing me documents he'd obtained through court records. "He left his assets to be divided equally between you and Ryan immediately, with your mother receiving the house and life insurance proceeds. There was no provision giving her control until you turned 30. She lied about the entire trust?" "It appears so. Based on these records, you should have received your inheritance 10 years ago." The betrayal cut deep. My father's final wishes had been ignored. his attempt to provide for me thwarted by the person he had trusted most. While Michael built a legal case, Jessica helped me investigate another inconsistency that had been bothering me. Ryan had always claimed his basketball skills were his ticket to college, that scouts were coming specifically to see him play. Yet the local newspaper's coverage of the game mentioned only one scout, who was quoted as being interested in another player entirely. His academic scholarship application was approved 2 months ago, Jessica discovered through a friend who worked in the high school guidance office. He already has a full ride to State University based on his grades, not basketball. The basketball story, the scouts, the desperate need for me to drive him, it had all been fabrication, a pretext to create conflict and justify cutting me off financially. As I sat in the chemotherapy chair the following week, watching the poison that would hopefully save my life drip into my veins, I saw Ryan being interviewed on the hospital television. He was accepting a community service award, speaking eloquently about family values and supporting each other through difficult times. The irony was almost too much to bear. 3 weeks into my chemotherapy treatment, the physical toll became impossible to hide. My hair started falling out in clumps, my skin took on a grayish pallor, and the constant nausea left me 15 pounds lighter. The photography studio where I'd been working part-time as an assistant called to temporarily release me, citing client concerns about my ability to handle equipment in my condition. The financial strain was becoming unbearable. Even with Jessica covering most expenses and Michael working pro bono, medical bills piled up. The hospital's patient advocate had helped me apply for emergency Medicaid, but the approval process was agonizingly slow, and many expenses weren't covered. Meanwhile, the harassment escalated. My car windows were smashed in Jessica's apartment parking lot. Anonymous texts arrived at all hours with messages like "attention seeker" and "stop lying about being sick." Once, returning from treatment, I found a basketball placed ominously at Jessica's door, a clear sign that Ryan's friends knew where I was staying. The community campaign against me reached new heights when my mother organized a fundraiser, ostensibly to help with family medical challenges. The flyers, which Jessica brought home, carefully avoided mentioning me by name but used my cancer story as the emotional hook to raise money for Ryan's college expenses and family support during difficult times. "She's literally using your illness to raise money for Ryan," Jessica fumed. "This is beyond belief." The fundraiser was scheduled at the community center where I'd volunteered teaching photography to kids for years. Seeing my former workplace turn against me stung, but I was too exhausted from treatment to fight back. Then came an unexpected intervention. Dr. Henderson called me personally the day before the fundraiser. "Amber, I don't normally get involved in patients' personal matters, but I've been seeing the flyers around town. Your mother is essentially fundraising using your medical condition without your consent, and I'm concerned about potential HIPAA violations." "There's nothing I can do about it," I said wearily. "No one believes me anymore." "Perhaps. But they might believe me." Her tone left no room for argument. "I'll be attending tomorrow's event." The following evening, Jessica came bursting into the apartment, her eyes wide with excitement. "You won't believe what happened at the fundraiser." According to Jessica and 3 different friends who'd called her immediately after, Dr. Henderson had arrived at the height of my mother's tearful speech about supporting family through health crises. When my mother specifically mentioned my daughter's claims of illness with air quotes and insinuations about mental health issues, Dr. Henderson had stepped forward. As the treating physician in this case, she announced to the crowded room, "I can confirm that Amber Winters has been diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma and is currently undergoing aggressive chemotherapy. Any suggestion that she is fabricating her condition is not only false, but constitutes slander and violates patient confidentiality laws." The room had reportedly gone silent as Dr. Henderson handed my mother her business card. "Feel free to have your lawyer contact me," she'd said before walking out. "Your mom looked like she'd been slapped," Jessica reported gleefully. "Ryan tried to save face, claiming you'd manipulated your doctor. But people were already whispering. I think the tide might be turning." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. But I needed evidence to truly clear my name and reclaim my inheritance. That weekend, while sorting through old boxes Jessica had stored for me years ago, I discovered a dusty plastic container labeled Family Videos. Inside were dozens of mini DV tapes from my father's old camcorder. On a whim, I asked Jessica if she still had her parents' old player. Somewhere in the garage, I think. Why? Just curious about some old family footage. We spent Sunday afternoon watching random family moments, birthdays, holidays, school events. Most were bittersweet reminders of happier times, until we reached a tape simply labeled Will Reading, 2012. My father, always meticulous, had apparently recorded the official reading of his will. I watched in stunned silence as the lawyer clearly outlined the inheritance terms, exactly as Michael had discovered, with no trust and immediate distribution to both children. The camera then panned to my mother, who was nodding understanding. She knew. She had always known. "This is it," Jessica whispered. This proves she lied. Even more shocking was a call I received the next day from an unknown number. "Is this Amber Winters? This is Carl at Main Street Storage. We found your father's name on an old unit during an audit. The payments are current, but we need to update the contact information." "My father's been dead for 10 years, I said, confused. "Yes, ma'am. But someone's been paying for this unit in his name every month since then. Automatic payments from a bank account." Curiosity overwhelmed caution. Jessica drove me to the storage facility that afternoon, where I provided my ID and my father's death certificate. The manager seemed satisfied and handed me the key. Unit 227, down at the end on the right. The padlock was rusted but opened with a protesting creak. Inside, cardboard boxes were stacked neatly against the walls. The first contained financial records, old bank statements, investment reports, tax returns. The second held personal items, my father's watches, cufflinks, the fountain pen he'd always used. The third box made me gasp. Dozens of leather-bound journals, all in my father's distinctive handwriting. He had been a lifelong journal keeper, a habit I had inherited. I opened the most recent one, dated just weeks before his death, and began to read. "Diana has been acting strangely about the will," he had written. "I've made it clear the children inherit equally, but she keeps pushing for a trust with her as sole trustee. I've refused. Amber will need her share for college next year, and Ryan's portion can grow until he's older. I don't trust Diana's judgment with large sums of money after the investment disaster last year. I've hidden copies of all financial documents in my storage unit, just in case. Amber knows how meticulous I am about record keeping. She'll find them if necessary." He had known. Somehow, he had anticipated problems and left me this breadcrumb trail. Tears streamed down my face as I read entry after entry, detailing my mother's financial manipulations, her favoring of Ryan, her attempts to control my father's assets even before his death. "We need to get these to Michael right away," Jessica said, helping me gather the most relevant journals and documents. As we loaded the evidence into her car, my phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. "Amber?" His voice sounded different, contrite, almost scared. "Can we talk? I've been doing some thinking, and I think Mom's gone too far. I want to help make things right." Ryan suggested meeting at a coffee shop near Jessica's apartment the next day. Against Jessica's advice, I agreed. "I don't trust him," she said as she drove me there. "Not after everything he's done. I need to at least hear what he has to say," I replied. "He's still my brother." Ryan was already waiting when I arrived, nursing a cup of coffee at a corner table. He looked up as I approached, his eyes widening slightly at my appearance. The chemotherapy had taken its toll. I was gaunt, pale, with a scarf covering my now sparse hair. "Amber," he breathed, "you really are sick. Did you think I was lying about cancer?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Mom said. He trailed off, looking genuinely ashamed. "She said you were exaggerating for attention, that you've always been jealous of me." For the next hour, Ryan spun a tale of manipulation and misunderstanding. According to him, our mother had orchestrated everything, feeding him lies about me from childhood, convincing him I resented his success and wanted to sabotage his future. "The basketball game was her idea," he admitted. "She said if we could prove you didn't care about my future, we could convince Dad's lawyer that you shouldn't get your inheritance." I didn't know about your doctor's appointment, I swear. And the social media posts? The vandalism? The harassment? The posts were me, he said, looking down. I'm so ashamed now. But the vandalism and harassment, that was Mom. She has these guys she pays to do things for her. Sketchy friends of her boyfriend Greg. He pulled out his phone, showing me text messages between him and our mother that seemed to support his story. Arguments where he questioned her methods. Messages where she pushed him to continue their campaign against me. I've been thinking about moving out, he said. Getting my own place near campus. I can't be part of this anymore. Especially now that I see how sick you really are. Despite years of manipulation, I wanted desperately to believe him. He was my little brother, the boy I'd helped raise after our father died. I'd changed his diapers, taught him to ride a bike, helped him with homework. The idea that he might still be the person I thought I knew was powerfully seductive. Over the next 2 weeks, Ryan became a fixture at Jessica's apartment. He visited between my treatments, bringing soup and movies, looking appropriately concerned about my health. He shared more evidence of our mother's schemes, recordings of her raging about me, screenshots of her contacting my clients with lies, a list of people she'd turned against me. Why the sudden change of heart? Jessica asked him pointedly one evening. I saw Dr. Henderson confront Mom at the fundraiser, he said. It was like a wake-up call. All these years, Mom told me Amber was the liar, the manipulator. Seeing a doctor stand up for her made me question everything. Slowly, I introduced Ryan to my support system. He met Michael, reviewing the legal strategy for recovering my inheritance. He accompanied me to a treatment session, holding my hand as the chemotherapy drugs flowed into my veins. He even helped Jessica organize my recovered journals and documents, offering insights into which entries might be most damaging to our mother's case. Jessica remained skeptical. He's too helpful, she whispered when Ryan stepped out to take a call. I don't buy this overnight conversion. People can change, I said. Maybe seeing me this sick was the reality check he needed. Or maybe he realized you found evidence and he's switching sides to save himself. I dismissed her concerns as overprotectiveness. After weeks of isolation and betrayal, having my brother back in my corner felt like a lifeline I couldn't bear to question. Then came the day I returned early from a canceled doctor's appointment to find my temporary home in disarray. Jessica's apartment door was ajar, drawers pulled open, papers scattered across the floor. My heart raced as I called out, fearing Jessica had been hurt. No answer. I called her cell phone. I'm at work, she answered. What's wrong? Someone's been in your apartment. It's a mess. I left it locked. Are you okay? Is anything missing? I looked around frantically, checking the hiding places where we'd stored my father's journals and the video of the will reading. Empty. All of it gone. The evidence, I whispered. All of it. It's gone. Jessica rushed home while I called Michael. As we surveyed the damage, my phone dinged with a text from Ryan. How was your appointment? The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Ryan had known I would be at the doctor's. He had a key to Jessica's apartment, given to him during his helpful phase, to check on me when chemotherapy left me too weak to answer the door. Check your other evidence, Michael urged. The video file I'd uploaded to my cloud storage was deleted. The digital copies I'd made of key journal entries, gone from my email. The backup USB drive, missing from my purse. He played us, Jessica said, her voice tight with anger. All of it was an act to find out what evidence we had. I couldn't speak, the betrayal choking me. My own brother had looked me in the eye, held my hand through chemotherapy, all while plotting to destroy me. My phone rang. An unknown number that I answered in a daze. Miss Winters, this is Officer Lambert. I need to inform you that a temporary restraining order has been filed against you by Diana and Ryan Winters. You're to have no contact with them and must stay at least 500 feet from their residence and workplaces. What? On what grounds? The petition alleges harassment, threatening behavior, and stalking. There's a hearing scheduled for next Monday at 9 a.m. You'll need to appear to contest it. After he hung up, I stared at my phone in disbelief. Ryan hadn't just stolen our evidence. He'd launched a preemptive strike. Jessica found me on her balcony an hour later, staring blankly at the sky as night fell. Michael called, she said gently. He got a copy of the restraining order petition. Ryan and your mother are claiming you've been sending threatening messages, showing up at their house at night, and making false accusations about them to damage their reputations. None of that is true. They have screenshots of texts and emails that appear to come from you. Michael thinks they've been fabricating evidence for weeks, probably since you discovered your father's storage unit. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Jessica's friend sent her a photo taken that afternoon outside a lawyer's office downtown. It showed Ryan and my mother, heads close together, laughing as they entered the building. The reconciliation had been the biggest manipulation of all, a calculated plan to identify and eliminate my evidence before I could use it. The courtroom felt cavernous as I sat beside Michael, fighting waves of nausea from my most recent treatment. My mother and Ryan sat at the opposite table with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who kept shooting confident smiles their way. One by one, they presented their evidence. Screenshots of threatening emails purportedly from my account. Recordings of voicemails where I warned them to back off or else. Testimony from neighbors who claimed to have seen my car parked outside their house at odd hours. All fabricated, but convincingly so. Miss Winters has a documented history of erratic behavior. Their lawyer argued smoothly. Her unfounded accusations about financial malfeasance began only after her cancer diagnosis, which has unfortunately exacerbated her paranoia and persecution complex. My mother took the stand next, tears welling as she described her heartbreak at watching me unravel mentally while refusing psychiatric help. "We just want her to get the help she needs," she said, dabbing at her eyes. "This restraining order is for her protection as much as ours. She needs professional intervention." Ryan's performance was even more convincing. He detailed my supposed jealousy of his athletic and academic success, my lifetime pattern of seeking attention through exaggerated medical issues, and my recent terrifying escalation into harassment and stalking. "I tried to help her," he said, his voice catching. "I visited her during chemotherapy. I really thought she was getting better. Then I found these in her room." He presented printed pages allegedly from my journal, detailing plans for revenge against them both. The handwriting was a remarkably good forgery of my own. When Michael presented our case, the damage was already done. The judge listened skeptically as we denied the allegations, explained the missing evidence, and outlined the actual financial fraud committed against me. "Do you have any proof of these counter-allegations?" the judge asked. "Our evidence was stolen, Your Honor," Michael explained. "Convenient," Ryan's lawyer commented just loudly enough to be heard. Without the journals, the video, or any documentation, it was their word against mine. And in my weakened state, thin and pale with a scarf covering my baldness, I appeared exactly as they'd painted me. Unwell, possibly unstable. Based on the evidence presented, I am granting the temporary restraining order for a period of 6 months, the judge ruled. Miss Winters is to have no contact with the petitioners and must remain at least 500 feet from their home and workplaces. The gavel's bang felt like a physical blow. My mother and Ryan exchanged small, satisfied smiles as they left the courtroom. Outside, I collapsed onto a bench, the stress of the hearing triggering another wave of nausea. Michael sat beside me, his usual confident demeanor shaken. "This isn't over," he assured me. "We can appeal, gather new evidence." My phone rang, interrupting him. It was Dr. Henderson. "Amber, your last blood test showed some concerning changes. We need to adjust your treatment protocol immediately. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" The cancer was progressing despite treatment. The setback, coming on the heels of the restraining order, was too much. For the first time since my diagnosis, I wondered if continuing to fight was worth it. That night, in Jessica's spare room that had become my refuge, I reached my lowest point. Physically depleted, financially ruined, legally outmaneuvered, and betrayed by my own blood, I lay awake wondering if simply giving up might be easier. "I can't do this anymore," I told Jessica the next morning, my voice flat. "I can't fight cancer and my family at the same time. I don't have the strength." "Then let me fight for you," she said fiercely. "You focus on beating cancer. Michael and I will handle the rest." But even Jessica's unwavering support couldn't lift my spirits. At the hospital later that day, I sat listlessly as Dr. Henderson explained the new treatment regimen: stronger drugs with harsher side effects. Amber? A voice I didn't recognize called my name as I left the consultation room. A young woman approached hesitantly. Tall, athletic, with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Something about her seemed vaguely familiar. "I'm Stephanie," she said, "Ryan's ex-girlfriend." I tensed immediately. "If he sent you—" "No!" she interjected quickly. "God, no! I haven't spoken to Ryan in months. Not since I found out what a manipulative liar he is." My curiosity overcame my caution. "How did you find me?" "I saw Dr. Henderson confront your mom at that fundraiser. Then I heard about the restraining order." She lowered her voice. "I know what they're doing to you. And I have proof." We moved to the hospital cafeteria, where Stephanie explained that she and Ryan had dated for nearly a year before breaking up 6 months ago. "He was recording your mother without her knowledge," she told me, sliding her phone across the table. "He thought it was funny, how manipulative she was. He used to play the recordings for me, laughing about how they were going to take you down and get all the inheritance money." With trembling fingers, I pressed play on the first audio file. My mother's voice filled my ears. "Once we get her medical records, we can build the case that she's mentally unstable. The inheritance will be easy to block then." Ryan's voice responded. "What about Dad's original will? If she finds a copy—" "She won't. I destroyed every copy except the doctored one. Trust me, by the time we're done, no one will believe a word she says." There were dozens of recordings spanning months, detailing their entire campaign against me: the financial sabotage, the evidence planting, the character assassination. Even their plan to manipulate the restraining order process. "Why are you helping me?" I asked when we'd listened to several key recordings. Stephanie's expression hardened. "Because Ryan did the same thing to me on a smaller scale. When I found out he was cheating and confronted him, he told everyone I was crazy, obsessive, that I'd been stalking him. I lost friends, my reputation. No one believed me." She met my eyes. "I believe you." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. "These recordings are admissible in court," Michael confirmed when I called him. "Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings. If Stephanie was a party to these conversations, they're legal evidence." That evening, Jessica, Michael, Stephanie, and I gathered around Jessica's dining table, formulating our counterattack. "The restraining order hearing is just the beginning," Michael explained. "With these recordings, we can file for an emergency reversal. More importantly, we can initiate criminal charges for fraud, file civil suits for defamation, and petition for immediate recovery of your inheritance." As my 3 allies strategized late into the night, I felt strength returning to my spirit, if not yet my body. The cancer might be attacking my cells, but it hadn't touched my resolve. "They thought they'd broken me," I said quietly. They were wrong. The courtroom was considerably more crowded for our emergency hearing to overturn the restraining order. Word had spread about the dramatic new evidence, and local media occupied the back row. My mother and Ryan sat at their table, looking confused by the expedited proceedings. Their lawyer approached Michael before the judge entered. "Whatever you think you have, we can settle this privately. No need to make a spectacle." Michael smiled politely. "We're well past settlement territory." Judge Garland, a different judge from our previous hearing, called the court to order. Michael wasted no time presenting our new evidence. "Your Honor, we have conclusive proof that the petitioners not only fabricated evidence against my client, but have engaged in a comprehensive campaign of fraud, defamation, and financial abuse." One by one, Stephanie's recordings filled the courtroom. My mother's face drained of color as her own voice detailed plans to falsify medical records, create fake threatening messages, and manipulate the legal system. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, eyes darting toward the exit as the recordings documented his role in destroying evidence and creating false journal entries. The most damning recording came last, a conversation between them just days after the restraining order was granted. "Ryan, that was almost too easy." The judge totally bought it. "Diana, of course he did. Nobody questions a mother concerned about her mentally unstable daughter." "Ryan, so what's next? How do we get the rest of the money?" Diana, I've already drafted the petition for conservatorship. Once I'm officially in charge of her affairs, we can drain whatever accounts she has left. With the restraining order in place, she can't even show up to contest it. Ryan, what about the cancer? What if she actually dies? Diana, please. She's always been a hypochondriac. But even if she is sick, all the better. More sympathy for us, the grieving family. Gasps echoed through the courtroom at the callousness of these final comments. Even their lawyer looked stunned. Furthermore, Michael continued, Miss Stephanie Clark has provided written testimony corroborating these recordings, along with text messages exchanged with Ryan Winters that detail aspects of this scheme. Stephanie took the stand next, her voice steady as she described Ryan's boasts about manipulating me, the court, and the community. He told me they'd been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment to cut Amber out completely. My mother's lawyer attempted to discredit Stephanie as a scorned ex-girlfriend seeking revenge, but the recordings spoke for themselves. When it was my turn to testify, I approached the stand slowly, still weak from treatment but determined to stand tall. Miss Winters, Judge Garland said, "Would you like to make a statement to the court?" "Yes, Your Honor." I took a deep breath. For 10 years, I've tried to be both sister and second parent to my brother. I sacrificed my education, my career opportunities, and often my own health to support my family after my father died. I never imagined they would repay that loyalty by trying to destroy me when I was at my most vulnerable. I looked directly at my mother and Ryan. The saddest part isn't the money, or even the betrayal. It's that when I was diagnosed with cancer, fighting for my life, the people who should have been my greatest support became my greatest threat. I'll never understand that kind of cruelty. The judge listened attentively, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she turned to my mother and Ryan. "Would either of you care to respond to these recordings or Miss Winters' testimony?" My mother rose, smoothing her skirt. "Your Honor, these recordings have clearly been edited or taken out of context. My daughter's illness has affected her judgment, and she's surrounded herself with people who enable her delusions. Are you suggesting Miss Clark fabricated these recordings?" "I'm saying my daughter has always been troubled." "And that wasn't my question, Mrs. Winters," the judge interrupted sharply. "Are you claiming these are not your words on these recordings?" My mother faltered. "I may have said some things in the heat of the moment, but, Your Honor," Ryan interrupted, standing, "I need to clarify something. This was all my mother's idea. She manipulated me, just like she manipulated Amber. I was trying to protect my sister by playing along, gathering evidence." "That's a lie!" my mother shrieked, her composed facade crumbling. "Everything we did was your idea. You wanted the money for that ridiculous sports car and your gambling debts." The courtroom erupted as mother and son turned on each other, each trying to shift blame. Judge Garland banged her gavel repeatedly. "Enough," she thundered. When order was restored, she delivered her ruling. "This court finds clear and convincing evidence of perjury, evidence tampering, and abuse of process. The restraining order against Amber Winters is hereby dissolved immediately." She fixed my mother and Ryan with a stern gaze. "Furthermore, I am referring this case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges, including perjury, fraud, and financial exploitation. Court officers will escort the respondents to meet with investigators immediately." As my mother and Ryan were led away, both still arguing about whose fault it was, I felt an overwhelming sense of vindication wash over me. In the months that followed, justice continued to unfold. The district attorney filed multiple charges against my mother, who eventually accepted a plea deal that included restitution, probation, and community service. Ryan, claiming youthful influence, received a lighter sentence but lost his scholarship due to character concerns. My father's original will was located and enforced, with Michael successfully petitioning for immediate distribution of my inheritance plus interest for the years it had been withheld. The funds arrived just in time to cover my remaining medical expenses not covered by the Medicaid I'd finally qualified for. 6 months after that fateful court hearing, I sat in Dr. Henderson's office for my follow-up scan results. "The treatment was successful," she said, smiling warmly. "You're in remission, Amber. Just as my body began healing, so too did my life rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. With my inheritance and a small business loan, I opened my own photography studio, specializing in portrait photography for cancer patients and survivors. Capturing beauty and strength in those society often renders invisible. Jessica remained my rock throughout recovery, eventually becoming my business partner when her graphic design skills proved the perfect complement to my photography. Michael continued handling my legal affairs, helping me create a foundation that provided financial assistance to cancer patients facing similar family abandonment. Stephanie, surprisingly, became a close friend. Her psychology background made her an invaluable addition to a support group I started for survivors of family betrayal, people who, like me, had discovered that sometimes the deepest wounds come from those who should love us most. As for my mother and Ryan, I maintained the distance that had been forced upon me, now by choice rather than court order. Forgiveness might come someday, but trust would not. Instead, I focused on the family I'd created, friends who had stood by me through the darkest moments, who had fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. On the 1-year anniversary of my remission, I stood before my support group, looking at faces that had become as dear to me as any blood relation. Family isn't always about DNA, I told them. Sometimes it's about who stays when everyone else walks away. Who fights for you when you have no fight left? Who believes you when the world calls you a liar? I touched the scar on my chest from my chemotherapy port, a badge of survival both medical and emotional. Our worth isn't determined by those who abandoned us. It's revealed by how we rise after falling, how we rebuild after destruction, and how we learn to trust again after betrayal. That journey isn't easy, but as we all know, nothing worth having ever is. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family who didn't have your best interests at heart? What helped you find the strength to keep going when those who should support you became your biggest obstacles? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. Until next time, stay strong and keep fighting your battles one day at a time.